every single word, right? You have to be careful with every single expression. It's like, is that what you really mean? You know what I mean? Is that what you really want to say? And then that's the part that makes you have to really go deeper into what you actually believe and think. Our value and our worth is not based upon being okay all the time. That is not human, right? And as human beings, we have to learn to embrace our humanness. We are in this human experience to learn how to love, how to heal. That's why we're here.
This is the Gold Digger Podcast.
So this is going to be a very special episode of the Gold Digger Podcast. And my guest today is living a parallel life to mine in terms of where she's at in this journey of putting a book out into the world with an incredible team behind her. Jada, welcome to the Gold Digger Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I was reading your book and one thing really stood out to me, and it was actually at the very beginning. I feel like it was almost your call to action of like, this is what you can expect. And you said, this then is a book about a woman's quest to find the power of unstoppable, indestructible love for herself, the key to her true empowerment, and the acceptance of the journey that delivered her there. Let's talk a little bit about how you arrived in this place of wanting to write a book and kind of landing on that synopsis of what a reader can expect.
I had a friend of mine, actually Jay Shetty, who we've been friends for a long time. And I was at his home one day and, a meeting with Radhanath Swami, and he, we were preparing for a meal, and he said to me, and he had been just worrying me to death about writing a book. He's like, you got to write a book. And I was like, Jay, I don't want to write a book. And he's like, no, but you have to. And so we got in kind of like this sibling bickering thing that we, over the book. And Radhanath came in and he was like, Jay, if Jada doesn't want to write a book, she doesn't have to. And Jay said, well, I think she should write a book. And I was like, he talked back to Radhanath Swami. He's like our spiritual father. But what happened in that moment is that it made me go home and really think. I'm like, Jay's your brother. Like, there's might be something here you're missing. And then a couple of days later, I was in meditation, and I was like, it just came to me. It was like, wow, you've had quite a journey from your quest of like feeling unlovable to feeling lovable. Your quest of feeling unworthy to worthy. And I was like, oh. And I called Jay. I said, I got it. All right. And I was like, okay, I got it. I got the line that makes me feel like my story is worthy to tell, And so that's how it all began right there.
So
because I didn't think I had a worthy story,
isn't that wild? So I know Jay as well. And he is incredible at like calling you out and not calling you out, but inviting you to step in.
Yes.
And I feel like so many authors, like for me, literally someone just said one line to me. They said, there's something you need to do and you know what it is and you're not doing it. And immediately I was like, it's write a book. And I feel like so many of us feel that way of like, who am I to do this? And what stories would I even tell? What was the process like for you? Because I mean, you go way back, like even to when you were 9 years old. So like, what was that process like as you started the writing process? Did it pour out of you? Was it hard? Did it flow? Was it forced? Talk to me about that.
Well, definitely the concept poured out of me, like the outline. Once I recognized the aspect of my journey I wanted to tell. Yeah. It was like that was the easy part, like the order, and in which I wanted to tell my story. Yeah. Now, actually writing it was excruciating. Yeah. Because, I had to go back. I went through one thing that really became clear to me was like I come from a generation of women who don't feel worthy, all the way back to my great grandmother, right? And I was like, wow. It's when I started tracking their story and how their story is connected to my mother's story and then how my mother's story connected to me. I was like, this is what generational trauma looks like, right? And how it can create this, this false idea of not feeling worthy, right? And having to go back into even my grandmother's history was really painful, and but yeah, the actual writing of the book was quite a journey in itself. I thought that there was so much I had made peace with,
Yes.
to only realize I was like, wow, I have a lot more work to do here in this area.
It's
It was
so
wonderful.
interesting because I feel like every author that I interview, as they are writing the book, it's like the universe or God is like dropping these things like, are you sure this is what you think? Are you sure this is what you
Right.
believe? And like the whole time it's like, you're writing to yourself and for yourself, but also for others.
Yeah.
But you're tested of like, what do I believe to be true? And why? Did that come up for you?
It came up for me, and especially, every single word.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to be careful with every single expression. It's like, is that what you really mean? You know what I mean? Is that what
Yes.
you really want to say?
Yeah.
And then that's the part that makes you have to really go deeper into what you actually believe and think.
Truly.
So yeah, that was definitely part of the process for me.
One thing that I absolutely loved, and I would love to go deeper on, we've actually never talked about this topic on the podcast, is the heroine's journey. And it is something so interesting because I honestly hadn't even been exposed to this idea until recently. I have grown up in a more bro marketing world where we talk about the hero's journey almost every day. This is how you market. This is how you sell. This is how you storytell. Let's tell that hero's journey.
Right.
Tell me first, what is the heroine's journey and how has that played out in your life?
I really believe that the heroine's journey for me personally is really finding that divine feminine, and of course, though when we talk about the heroine's journey and the hero's journey, I'm not even really talking about it in regards to gender.
Yep.
It's more energetic,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because we all encompass, the masculine energy and the feminine energy. I'm watching a couple of my male friends right now on their path of their heroine's journey, going in the internal world, right? So to me, the heroine's journey is more about really exploring the inner world of oneself, right? The realm of love, connection, energy, right? All that is unseen, right?
Yes.
All, that vast unseen world. And, so many of us, we're so used to relating to life and to our world just as far as just the exterior and accomplishing and going out and go for the flag,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times when we talk about female empowerment, I think a lot of times we are really tapping into those more masculine energies within ourselves
Yep.
that we, you know what I mean? That we
Yes.
are saying, hey, this is our female empowerment. And that is a beautiful, necessary thing, right? To balance that out, to not forget to go inward, right? To then go into the world of the divine feminine within ourselves, right? And that in itself there's so much power and knowledge and wisdom there. And it is not a place that is talked about a lot. We don't talk about the heroine's journey enough, I think. And I think that it's still a very hidden, not really explored often, right? Not even in film and television, I'd have to say, I know people are going to be like, what? But Buffy Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Have you ever watched that show?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, through the many stages of her life, was such a beautiful exploration of the heroine's journey.
Yeah.
I know. You're like, what do you mean? She was just
No.
slaying vampires, but she wasn't. You know, we got to see her coming of age, which in that self was part of the heroine's journey, and her coming out of her coming of age into her adulthood, her having to hone her powers.
Yep.
You know, we saw her go into the darkness in order to find the light. I mean, to me, it's one of the most beautiful aspects of the heroine's journey. And we had 7 years to spend with that female character. Because the heroine's journey is not a hit it and quit it. It's not a straight shot. It's a spiral.
Yep.
It's a spiral, you know? And so, but yeah, that's where I am in my life right now, just exploring that particular aspect of myself.
I love that because I think too, for so many women and entrepreneurs, it's really easy for us to get in our masculine. Like when I think about like the work side of me, it is very masculine. And then all of a sudden I'm supposed to flip a switch and be a mom and a wife and like clothe myself in this feminine energy. And it's like learning how to embody both and bring the wholeness of you into all the realms. And it's something that I feel like I've been exploring and thinking about because so many people that listen to this podcast are achievers, right? Like they're the go-getters. They're the ones that like want to make the results. And again, that's so masculine. And somebody described it to me yesterday. We were actually talking about this topic and they were saying it's like when you can feel your wings, but still have your roots. And I loved that of like, you have that flow, but you still feel that like grounded certainty. And I thought that was such a beautiful visualization of like, how do we bring our whole selves to every room we enter and not compartmentalize ourselves? Now, one thing your book does an incredible job is it shows your whole self. What were you thinking when you wrote it in the sense of like, who's going to read it? Did you let anybody read it before you're putting it out there?
I let people read parts.
Yeah.
You know, because it's a lot, you know what I mean? So I let people read parts of it. Like my mother, you know, I had her read her part. And then my daughter, Willow read a big part of the book before it was even edited.
Yeah.
So she, right? Because she was so
raw.
interested. Yeah, she read the raw. She couldn't wait, right? And so, but you know, one of the reasons why it was important for me to really go there in my book is because I really felt like I wanted the best to my ability to explain my heroine's journey, right? Because I feel like, as I said before, it's still very taboo. It's still really taboo. I don't feel like that we as women feel safe to really be honest about our journeys.
Yeah.
I still think that we are judged and, you know, we are expected. Every woman is expected to be a certain kind of thing, which prevents us from being all that we are. And that's with the shadow and the light.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, well, I've been through the gauntlet of criticism. I've been through the gauntlet of misunderstanding. If there's anybody who can afford to be extremely honest, right, about what her journey has been, it's me, you know, because, you know, what else can people say, right? Yeah. And so, and I just felt like just so that other women can feel seen in a certain way that they might not feel seen because they're not allowed, they don't feel that they are allowed to be seen in a certain manner. And so, you know, I just was like, let's go for it. And even with the red table, because people are like, well, you know, what's different that we're going to get in the book than the red table? Yeah. It's very different because the red table, there was so much that I couldn't talk about because there was no context, right?
And we think in sound bites in these days.
Yeah,
right?
you know, it's like there's no context. So it's like There was so much I couldn't talk about. And it didn't have anything to do with not wanting to be honest or what have you. It's just like that particular forum
Yep.
is not the same as a book, where a book
Right.
you can really dive in.
Yeah. Can we dive a little bit into criticism and even people coming up with stories, because I think that so many women don't even try because they're not afraid of failure, they're afraid of success, and we've seen both sides of success, right?
Yeah.
And when I talk to women, at first their first instinct is, I don't want to fail. And it's like, do you not want to fail, or do you not want people to see you fail? The second instinct, when we go deeper, is, can I handle success? Now,
Yeah.
you have seen what success brings, right? And it can bring a lot of hatred and criticism. Talk to me about that, because I can't imagine the scope of that. And then also putting yourself out so vulnerably in a season where, like, you're basically putting your armor on and saying, all right, let's go.
Yeah. Let's
What has
go.
that been like for you?
I'm going to tell you, it's been beautiful because without it, I would not have been able to really explore and cure self judgment. There is no weapon that can be forged against you, right? If you really believe in who you are, right? And the world is fickle. If we are looking for the world to validate us in a way that we can't validate ourselves, well, then we are leaving ourselves to be susceptible to being, pulled this way and that way based upon how other people feel about us.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I've learned in all of the misunderstanding and in all of it, right? All the criticism and judgment is like, I really had to be 10 toes down in knowing who I am and walk with that. And the more that I did that, and the more that I practiced that, and the more that I cured my self judgment, what anybody has to say about you is not your issue. That is so true. I know it's a very cliche thing to
Yeah.
say. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what people have to say about you is not your business. That could not be more true. That people who judge other people are truly judging themselves. And it is a reflection of their relationship with themselves.
Yeah.
It's not a reflection of you. How you feel about you is your problem,
Yeah.
not how anybody else feels about you.
How do you
And when you
ground
have,
yourself in the truths that you have? Because I think this is so powerful, and it's a practice that I think women don't explore enough, is to really examine their own self-beliefs so that they can hold the mirror up to themselves and not see everyone else. Do you have any practices around that, or anything that you do to have strengthened or honed that gift?
well, first of all, let me just say this, and people who decide to read the book will see that this is not something I came up with overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like, I went through some of the darkest days, depression, wanting to kill myself, like you name it, right? That forced me to have to be on a long journey of finding all different kinds of wisdom and practices,
Yeah.
right? So along the way, what I do today, with everything that I've collected along the way,
Yep.
I sit with myself in meditation every morning. And I've really learned to hone my mind, because listen, it's really about, and it could be meditation, it can be breathing exercises, it can be whatever you discover for yourself.
Yeah.
But the key is to direct the mind. The mind is not meant to direct you, right? Meaning the mind will tell us all kinds of funky things, which I learned, as I talk about in the book. one of the medicine journeys that I had, it's like I realized like, oh, the mind will lie to you and spew false beliefs in ways you could never imagine. Your mind can act as your enemy. So it's finding a practice in which you you have the reins of your mind. So when those voices of self-judgment, sabotage come in, nope, that's not true. And now I'm going to settle into and be with the energetic field that is more true, and that I am of divine essence. You know what I mean? And I am love. I am loved. I am worthy, but it's a practice.
Yeah.
It's a practice. And I have to do it every single day.
Yes.
Right? To make sure that I'm guiding my mind.
There's so many women listening to this, and it's so interesting because I was one of those people who literally believed like, I am not capable of meditating. My mind is too busy, because I had grown up with this belief that like meditation was the absence of thoughts. And I was like, I am never absent of thoughts, right? Like, when is my brain empty? And it was so interesting when I finally started to change the thought of like, it needs to be absent of thoughts to having an awareness of thoughts. And it totally transformed that relationship for me. And I love what you say too, where it's like, we're meant to guide our mind, not the other way around, because there are so many ingrained beliefs around us that are the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories we tell ourselves become our lives.
Right.
And the word worthy, I want to hear, Jada, how you define the word worthy, because it is a loaded word, right? Like,
it's a loaded word,
it's, am I worthy to myself? Am I worthy to society? Am I worthy in the eyes of my mother or father or spouse or children? Right. How did you land on that title? Because I mean, it is a one word, but it is a weighty word. Like, let's talk about that.
Just that self-worth.
Yeah.
How do we value ourselves, right? And a lot of times, unfortunately, we value ourselves by, does a man want to marry me? Or, or a woman want to marry me? Or, am I accomplishing enough? Do I have enough material things to show on Instagram, right? And that level of self-worth is really dependent upon, far too many times are we measuring ourselves by these outside, ideas, right? And it's like, whoa. How do I value myself? If I don't value myself, how am I going to really recognize when someone is or something is authentically reflecting reflecting worth? Right? And I had to dig on that, because it went from unlovable, right? Because that's what I wanted to name my book, Unlovable. And Carrie Thornton, who you know very well, who's a great shooter, listen, she was like, absolutely not. You cannot start with a negative. And I was like, but it's not, that's what we're all struggling with. We feel unlovable, right? And then in my book, though, as I started writing it, because I was holding on to that, I am going to convince her that Unlovable is the title of this book. But throughout the book, I started using the word worthy.
Yeah.
And because I was digging on self-worth.
Yeah.
And value, how we value ourselves and so for me, worthy is really about rehabilitating how we think about ourselves. It's not about, how big your business is, how much money you've been making. You can go out here and achieve like any man and all of that. That's all fantastic.
Yep.
From my own experience, being a woman who's done all that, that did not cure my lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
What it did show me is that I'm capable. I'm capable. I can do a lot of things well, right? But the soul knows that is not what it needs to be fed, right? At its core, that is not the supplement that is needed. Listen, it's beautiful to have,
Yeah.
it's like frosting, right? But it's not the cake.
Yep.
It's the frosting on the cake. The cake is when you are sitting by yourself in a room and it's just you with you.
Yeah.
What's going on? How do you feel about that? And if you're trying to get out that room and you don't want to be there with yourself, but you expect somebody else to be in that room with you and love it, now that's something to look at, because that's not going to happen. If you don't love being with you, you can best believe it's as difficult for someone else to be with you too.
Yeah.
So the whole point is, no. How do I love learning to just be with me? Right? And then everything else that comes with it, all your accomplishments, all of that is even bigger and better. Because you've got the cake. Because if you're just eating icing, you're going to get sick.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love what you say, because I feel like so many women are afraid to get quiet with themselves, because if the honest answer is I'm not okay, or this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or I'm faking the enjoyment of my life, and if they actually get honest about it, they have a responsibility to do something about it. And I feel like most women are avoiding even asking those questions because they're afraid of the answers. Has that happened in your life? And can you tell a story about that?
That has been the majority of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I think that a lot of my depression had to do with me not being willing to sit with myself to get the answer. Having to really confront, stuff from my childhood, a lot of the traumas that I've endured. I didn't want to have to, I just didn't want to look at it.
Yeah.
It's too painful. But what I realized is that it was the resistance of looking at it that was the most painful.
Ooh, yes.
Right? The moment that I decided to surrender and be willing to look at it.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that it was easy,
Right.
right? But it is to say that it got less difficult. And you know what I had to really resolve? I don't have to be okay all the time. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
It's okay, because I'm going to tell you what. A lot of us are not okay. Right? And there's some of us that can be okay at moments. But most of the time, I don't know anybody who's okay all the time.
Right.
And our value and our worth is not based upon being okay all the time. That is not human, right? And as human beings, we have to learn to embrace our humanness. We are in this human experience to learn how to love, how to heal. That's why we're here. And I think that acceptance of just understanding it's okay to not be okay. And I think so many of us go, especially for women who are achievers, high achievers, women who might be at home with their kids, stay-at-home moms that have beautiful families and have beautiful kids and love their family. And they're feel shame for not being okay.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed.
What would be something that you found on your own journey that has helped you move through those times or seasons or trials? I think for someone listening, they're like, okay, I'm now being honest. I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Now what, right? Where do I go from here?
Exactly. And let me tell you something. this is a challenging part because sure, I could sit up here and tell you what's worked for me. That doesn't mean that's your gate.
Yeah.
Right? This is the challenging part. And this is where the feminine journey gets, the heroine's journey gets a little challenging. The hero's journey, they say, oh, you want to be a track star? Go get that track coach over there.
And they do
you
it, and they win, and it's
right, you know what I mean? It's like all the, you want to be an entrepreneur, go to business school,
Yeah.
all of the goals that you want to achieve, in regards to your hero's journey. When you're talking about the heroine's journey and that inner world space, it is so subjective. So what I would say is, don't be afraid to just search, try new things, ask questions, right? Talk to your girlfriends. Go talk to, what I did, the first thing I did when I really got into a bad place, I went and talked to some elders.
Yeah.
There was a woman named Ruby D. Ruby was in her 80s. She'd been through the gauntlet. I sat and I talked to her about her life. I said, look, I'm going through this. I'm having problems in my marriage. I'm feeling this way. And she said, all right, hold up. Let me break it through a few things down for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to go to the OGs, right?
It's true.
And it's true. Go to your elders. That's where I went first. And then from there, so many doors open for me, books and seminars, and you just got to keep going and keep trying, right? Until you find all the gates that start to open for you that lead you to the place you want to be.
So I have a question I've never asked someone, but I'm very curious with you. So when you write a book, by the time it comes out, you are about a year removed from the writing process. If you were to add on an extra chapter today of what you've learned in the last year, what would it be about?
Okay, so in my particular circumstance, I didn't turn my book in a year ago.
Okay, Jada.
I just turned my book in. We were pens down July.
Oh, Lord. Okay. Tell me more. Oh.
Yeah, because it was... So I decided that I was going to write a book in December of 2021.
Okay.
And then sold it and then right after the Oscars.
Oh, sure.
Was when I had to start writing.
Great.
And so, right. And even after that, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to write this book.
Yeah.
Right. But so I've been writing since then. So we were pens down.
Yeah.
July.
Beautiful.
So it hasn't been a year yet. So I don't even know.
Well, I can't wait to see what unfolds because I feel like there's something so interesting about a book in such a digital world where we can, post things and edit them or delete them. And all of a sudden you have this book that you're holding in your hands, this tangible thing that is going to outlive and outlast you. And I love what you were saying about thinking about every word and every line. And is this truly what I mean? Because there's that level of permanence that we don't necessarily have in today's culture. And it's both beautiful and daunting, right? Because it's like, this is what I know to be true now. And that's what I kept telling myself. This is what I know to be true now. And that leaves space for evolution and growth, which I think we are all subscribed to. My final question for you is just, what has come up for you in the process of putting yourself out there with this new identity as an author? Are there any things that you've had to deal with? Are you excited, nervous, scared, elated? Like, how is that feeling?
Well, I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to answer your last question,
great.
which was, what is the chapter that I would put? Yeah. And I would probably put, hey, there is going to be a lot of transformation, even in, once this has reached your hands, right? And for all of you that, will read this 5 years from now,
Yeah.
right? Because you're right. It's like, even looking back on chapters, we're growing every day.
Right. Right.
Every single day we're growing. And that was one of my biggest fears. It's like, oh God, I'm going to read this book next year and I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
I'm so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have said that so differently. I would have done this so differently.
Yeah.
But that's inevitable. And I've had to make peace with that.
Yeah.
But I probably would put a chapter in of like, hey, everybody, I just.
Come see what the new evolution of Jada
Right,
is today.
right.
But I love that, and I don't think we talk about that enough as creators of like, it is okay to look back at your old stuff and cringe. It's okay to look back and love that person that you were and to see that evolution. And I think as women, we're often stifled in growing. Like, growth and change is so intimidating, and women don't want to be seen changing, right? Like, there's some weird negative connotation that keeps us from evolving. And so I was curious if you felt that as an author, because that level of permanence is both beautiful and stifling at times.
Well, when we talk about the patriarchy construct, so that's part of the difficulty when we're talking about the feminine energy, because the feminine energy is always changing. And masculine energy, and I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about energy. Masculine energy tends to want to be more stable, more permanent,
Predictable.
right? Predictable. Feminine energy is not that. You can find the predictable energy once you are acquainted with the feminine. But what it does, it's like weather, it's like the ocean, right? And so I think that women being afraid of change, a lot of times we feel like we will no longer fit in a construct that we feel like we need to be a part of to feel worthy, to feel accepted, to feel embraced, right? And so that's that. I think that, and what was it? Jen, what were you saying?
I know, I'm trying to remember where else we were going on that. Oh, what has come up for you in the process of putting this book out there? And how has that felt? Because I feel like it is a very vulnerable position, especially in writing a memoir that goes deeper than people have ever gone with you.
Yeah, it's I definitely, this is a place of expansion for me.
Yeah.
It's challenging, because that this is that place of, once again, of deepening that self-acceptance and writing this book is really a gate for me that I needed. I'm hoping that there will be people that will embrace it, right? Mm-hmm. But I wrote it as a gate for me. I wrote it as a gate of embracing my full, entire self. I want to walk this earth holistically, right? And I wrote it for me, and then I wrote it for other women who want the same thing for themselves. Not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants to reveal their shadow. Not everybody wants to reveal the messiness of their lives in order to show how you find the gold in the mud, but I want that for myself. I want to be able to walk this earth with my head held high, embracing every single aspect of myself with love. And I want that for other people. I'm hoping this men get something out of it, but I really wrote this for the queens out there, for the women. Yeah.
Where can everybody find out more about you, get their hands on your book? Give us all the places to grab a copy of Worthy.
You can go to ourworthyjourney.com. I mean, at ourworthyjourney.com, we'll be putting up all different kinds of content. You can get the book there now, but content just to, between videos and books and podcasts that you can, that are available to you to help you on your journey, right? To maybe, help you towards that next gate. Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, Target, all the places that you can get books.
And everyone can find you on the internet at Jada Pinkett Smith. Not very hard.
Exactly. My Instagram and Red Table will be coming back soon, so I'm excited about that. And so I'll be around.
I commend you for sharing your story and being vulnerable and shining a light in some of the places that people are scared to go. And I'm so excited for people to get their hands on their book and to see maybe a different side of you that they never got to see. It's beautiful to see your story come to light and to have you be the one telling it. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. You just made my heart smile. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you have a quick second, take a second, make sure you're subscribed to my show. And if you love today's marketing tips, tricks, strategies, and life talk, then check out this episode. You are going to love it. So I was recently at a mastermind and we were on the closing day sharing our closing thoughts. And my friend Jim Quick was sitting right next to me and he said something so poignant. The topic was comfort zones. And essentially what he said is that there are two types of hard that nearly everyone is experiencing. The hardness that comes when you're stuck inside of your comfort zone, but also the hard that comes when you're trying to break away from it.